Sox in the basement.
We got a lot of comments on the last show, and I want to get into them because we're going to kind of continue the discussion. But that last episode was only a couple days ago because we've also flipped when Sox in the Basement is coming out. And the reason we're going to go with Friday, and that means we'll also do Tuesday, so we're going to do Tuesday, Friday instead of Wednesday, Saturday. I've been waiting till the offseason to do this, Ed. I just feel like Friday's the beginning of a series. Generally, there's Thursdays that the team is off on a Thursday, and they're off on some Mondays, and it just makes a lot of sense to do it Tuesday, Friday. We used to do Tuesday, Friday, and I got away from it a couple years ago. I liked kind of being the alternative to when most people release their shows, but I'll be honest with you, like I'm gonna go right into the two best days to put out a White Sox podcast because I think we've got a great show here at Sox in the Basement. Heck, we had Don Cooper on here recently, and we're having an awful lot of fun. And we get the reaction that we got to the last show just from the listener, and I just think it works better for my schedule, your schedule, and also for just the value of the show. So we're making that flip. But first off, the Don Cooper thing. Let me dive into that real quick. If you missed that show, go back, check it out on any podcast player. But he was an entry in the $1,000 guest bounty. That's brought to you by Cork and Carry at the Park. Send us a guest that you think would be good on this show. And during the off season, we'll get the guest on. We'll put it together. We just need you to give us like some lead time. You got a phone number, you got a connection to the guest, something like that. And then spring training, there'll be a vote. During spring training, fans will vote on which was the best interview. The winner gets $1,000. So Don Cooper won't get it. The guy that submitted Don Cooper will get it. That contestant will make the $1,000 if Don wins. And I'm telling you, that is not a foregone conclusion. We got a bunch of people who are lining up right now. It's all brought to you by Cork and Carry at the Park, 33rd in Princeton, your place for pregame, postgame, in-game viewing of White Sox games, and definitely a spot to get a great burger. They're award-winning. They got a great menu. They're a great neighborhood bar here in the off-season. Don't forget about them, and check out the location at 106th and Western as well, the original location, Cork and Carry. See it all at corkandcarry.com. You got $1,000 guest bounty out there. You've also got big reaction us talking about personnel on the White Sox, and that's what I want to get into today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And, and I'm glad we're going to Tuesday, Friday, because Kenny Williams Jr. suggested Wednesday, Saturday. And now that you've fired him, we can actually have a solid foundation for winning.
I love the callback. That's the best. Anytime you want to throw something in about Kenny or Kenny's kid, you're totally, you go ahead. You have carte blanche.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So I just noticed that we got a good response to that episode. And I just wanted to read some of the comments because we were talking about guys like, is this somebody you want to keep on your team? Is this somebody you think that you can continue to develop? Is this somebody you want to move on from? Is this somebody you want to trade? Like, let's start asking those questions here as the offseason begins.
Yeah, it's what everybody's got to have on their mind right now because the World Series, as interesting as it is, doesn't really affect the White Sox that much unless you really were thinking like, hey, if the Mariners don't make it, Josh Naylor's price might come down just a little bit, or something along those lines. But that's where we have to be as White Sox fans is what happens next.
Is Naylor the guy? Like, I mean, it's really funny because I keep hearing people mention him. Like, is this the guy that everybody thinks that we're going to go on target? Is Josh Naylor?
Yeah, I heard his name bandied about more. I think mainly because we don't have a first baseman, and he's a good player. I mean, I wouldn't say no. Would you say no to Josh Naylor?
No, I would be fine with Josh Naylor, and I think it's interesting because I was looking at for later on here in the episode when we start picking out new guys that we want to evaluate. Josh Naylor was a comp for a player that I think that you might want to say get rid of. So meaning that Josh Naylor would probably be the same price, if not cheaper, and actually give you more. But we'll get into that here in a little bit. First off, just some of these comments here to the last episode. Jim says, keep Vargas. I bought his City Connect jersey. Now, I think we gave some reasons to hold on to him other than the City Connect jersey. My question, Jim, is why do you have that jersey? Like, and maybe it's just me. Like, there's part of me, I think, that hates that jersey because I picture Jerry Reinsdorf sitting in an office, in one of those darkened offices with the shades drawn, kind of like the evil owner from The Natural, right? Like puffing on a stogie, saying, well, these Southside ones with that are black with the white pinstripes did really well, but I feel like we could make more money if we could sell them at Bulls games. Let's make them Bulls colors. Like, that's how that feels to me, right? Like, They don't feel like a real White Sox jersey. They feel like a marketing ploy from a guy who owns two mid teams, for two teams that are just not very good, that historically underperform and are underfunded by their ownership. Like, that's what it feels like. It's a money grab. And so I don't like those jerseys. I really dislike the idea of throwing the red and black into the jerseys. And it's funny because you have this deal with the Wirtz family with your television station now. So you got the Bulls, the Blackhawks,
and the United Center,
and the White Sox in the United Center. And then all of a sudden you get a City Connect jersey that's red and black. And to me, I can see the Wirtz family going in and saying, hey, red and black, remember us? Don't ignore the fact that Jonathan Taves is back in the league and playing for the Jets instead of the Blackhawks. Just, we're here still too. Right. I mean, honest to goodness, that's why I don't think I like that jersey. I don't think I like the jersey because I imagine nefarious reasons why they settled on that design. I mean, it has everything except for the two bull's horns sticking out of the logo. And I'm shocked that they didn't try that. Eric says, I love Vargas. He plays hard. He's only going to get better. You have to keep Vargas. He's a good teammate too. Go Sox. I think we kind of
we brought that up too. We brought up his leadership and being a good teammate and all that stuff and why that's important, even for a guy that's the production may not be there as high as you'd like it. I mean, he produced.
Chris says he would keep both catchers. We talked about this with Teal and Carroll. Move one as a last possible move if you need to contend strongly. Spread loading time is good for catchers. Having them both playing will keep them fresh, and then you'll have them ready for October. Like this is not a bad problem to have. Look,
it's a great problem to have.
I think it's a great problem to have. I do.
I love this problem.
I think my only problem is with this problem.
You got problems with the problem?
It feels like a waste of resources, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like if you're not going to DH one of them while the other one's catching, at least 3 out of the 4 times, you want to have them on the field together or in the lineup together 3 out of 4 games at least. Like, you really want to maximize them. If you're not going to do that, then I wonder if you could find an equal player, and that's easier said than done. That works in video games, right? You take a guy who's rated an 85 at catcher, and you go and you find a guy who's an 85 at center field, right? And you make the trade, and the computer goes, that works, right? Like, it's easier said than done. And in that instance, you'd make this trade. You get rid of one of these guys because you'd be like, well, the 85 at center field could play center field every day, and I still have the other guy who's a catcher who's like an 85 rating in the game, and my team just got better on the video game. Like, that's what you would do. So in a perfect simulation, that's why you would talk about moving one of these guys. But then you have to identify a player in another position of need that is of equal or greater value than the catcher you're moving for it to make sense. You have to be right about that, and you have to find a willing partner that's going to make that deal with you. But if it did come about and you were really sure about it, I think that's why you would consider making the move, unless you're going to use these guys most days in your lineup. And I think that once you become a team that's not trying to just build like you were in 25, but you want to contend like you should be trying to do in 26 just to try to reach a playoff spot, that should be a goal. You may not make it, but it should be a goal. With all these extra playoff wildcard spots, it should be a goal to try to add a few pieces, see if everybody improves, and put yourself in a position at least to be competitive. That should be a goal next year. So if you're going to do that, now you can't lose games because one of your catchers had to come out of the game, and now you have to lose the DH spot and have a pitcher stand there. You need another catcher that you can have come in and sub, so you don't have to do that. So now you got to carry 3, and I wouldn't have a problem with carrying Corey Lee, and having 3 catchers on the staff on the bench. But the problem is, does that fit what they want to do with their roster construction? And if they can't figure out how to do that, if they can't move, say, Teal into the outfield, if they have to set it up where one's a DH and one's a catcher and that's all they can do, but you don't want to bring Leon to have a third catcher for those instances, then they do have to consider trading him. I would prefer that they try out Teal in the outfield with a glove or come up with a better solution than moving on from one of them. But I think that's where the paradox lies, Ed.
Yeah, well, it's easier to look at the Oakland A's where Tyler Soderstrom went from a catcher to first base to left field and is now a candidate for a Gold Glove in left field because he made that transition and it is a staple of their lineup out there. and look at what Kyle Teal or Edgar Caro could do moving positions than it is to sit there and continue to say, look, at catcher, we have got a BMW and a Mercedes, and ignore the fact that they're parked in the driveway where the garage is burnt down and there's no bathrooms in the house because we have a few holes to fill here.
Right.
You know?
We want to take care of all the problems. Like, we want to upgrade. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. We've said this before. You have 9 guys out there that are going to go start every day that are capable starters in Major League Baseball, which is not what you had going into the season last year. This time last year, if you'd have told me in 2025 they're going to build a base in which every single position at least has basically a replacement level Major League Baseball player, and several of them have the potential to be 3-4 WAR players, and Colson Montgomery showed up and was already over a 3B WAR with only half a season, so he was on pace for a 6 to 7 WAR season. And you would have told me that, I'd been like, whoa, where do I sign up? How do I?
Oh yeah.
Who do I have to murder for that to happen? Right? Could it be Jerry? I mean, like, who do I kill?
I was going to say, you know who the answer
Jerry,
would have been almost universally.
But I mean, but here's the thing, like that was something that was like far end reaching for the stars going into this year, and you ended up with it. But then now what you have to do is you have to upgrade some of these positions. So you got to figure out how you're going to do that, and some of them are. It's more needed than having a second catcher that's also really good like the first catcher, and having 2 guys that are at this high level. And that's why that's the only reason you consider moving one of them. Again, I don't want to do that. Give one a glove, probably Teal, and stick him in left field. And you'd have to move on from Benintendi. And one of the other comments talks about how he's an albatross. So I think we hit a nerve, and that's why we're going to talk about that more on today's show. Before we get into that, for exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. No high pressure sales. They're not going to show up at your house and tell you, here's the deal I'm going to give you. But the moment I walk out the door, I could probably never get you this deal again. I hate that stuff. Instead, go into their showroom and you're going to talk to an owner. Guess what? He's going to be able to give you the deal all the time because he owns the place. He's going to answer all of your questions. There's an owner on site during install. They use all their own installers. They don't farm out the work. They've been doing it that way for 4 decades in Oak Forest since 1985 with all major brands custom made and no stock items for a perfect fit. Sox in the Basement wants you to check out Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest, a half block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street. See more at windowdooroakforest.com. So when we're talking personnel and choices that need to be made, let's get to the big one. Luis Robert Jr. You have a $20 million option. You
Talk about
chose
albatross.
not to move him. You said, we're not moving Luis Robert Jr. There were offers out there. They weren't good enough for you. But I contend that if you didn't take any of those offers, you're saying we're going to at least pick up that contract. So I'm assuming they pick it up at $20 million. They may look to move him, but they're not just going to get rid of him now. If they get rid of him at this point, it feels stupid. Like, it's not my money. It's the old man's money. And I could care less if he loses $1 million. What would it have been here? For him to do, he would lose $2 million. He'd have to give him $2 million to opt out. So that would stink. But it would also make no sense. If you just said we're not taking anything at all from anybody and we're just going to pay him $2 million to go away at the end of the year, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But I looked this up today, and this is how I want to start the conversation on Luis Robert Jr., his value. If you look up, I use a little AI, right? Searched all the internet, try to figure this out. In 2025, the cost of a win above replacement in Major League Baseball came in at about $8 million based upon all the free agent signings and what they actually did. And that's pretty normal. I look back at previous years. Sometimes it's 9 million, sometimes it's like 7.5. But that's about what a win above replacement is. It's $8 million. Luis Robert Jr. was a 1.4 B WAR this year. So Luis Robert Jr. is a little bit under 12 million. He's probably worth $11 million. That's what he performed at. He performed at an $11 million, let's say, or $11.5 million price tag. He came nowhere near 20. He did the exact same thing the year before, 1.4 B WAR. The year before that, All-Star 5.3, he'd be a steal at $20 million. You'd be angry if they didn't give him $20 million and keep him on the team. You'd be super pumped about it. You'd be buying a City Connect jersey with him, too. You'd be like, I want every Luis Robert Jr. Jersey if he's doing 5.3.
Even one that has the Bulls horns on it.
Yeah, just give me the most ridiculous looking thing and just put it on my back with Robert Jr. on it. Like, that's what you'd be doing. Right. That's what you'd be doing. But that's not what he is. That's the anomaly on his baseball card. On Luis Robert Jr.'s baseball card, he has a 5.3 B-WAR season, followed by two 1.4s. And the year before that 5.3 was a 2.2. Okay? I mean, this is what he is. And until proven otherwise, is what he is. Now, you can make the argument, well, he doesn't get as many wins above replacement because he's injured. Well, this is his value, though. Like, if you're injured every year, if you're Byron Buxton for Minnesota, you don't have an awful lot of value because nobody knows how many games you're going to play. You're great when you're out there, but nobody knows how many games you're going to play. So, I mean, like, if you had an employee that you were paying money to in any business, and he was the best, let's say he's the best barista in the coffee shop, Ed, makes a cappuccino so fast and knows how to make it right with all the foam.
Oh yeah, one of the really good ones.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like I like cappuccinos. That's like my drink. I have to find the places that know that it's not. I don't want milk. I want foam. Right. That's how cappuccino goes. When they make it with all the milk, they're just giving me a latte, and that's terrible, and that's not what I want. So you find the ones that are good at it. So let's say you got the best barista ever, and then you got a couple of average baristas. Well, the average barista shows up every day, and the great guy shows up like half the time, right? Well,
and you don't know when he's going to show up.
You have no idea. You know, all of a sudden he's going to show up one day and be like, I'm taking a vacation. I'll be gone for a month. Or I stub my toe and I'll be gone for a month, whatever the reason is. Your coffee shop is going to perform well, and then it's not going to perform well. Your customers are going to be like, well, I wonder which one I'm getting. And you might lose a few customers because the average guys aren't making the cappuccino the right way. I know this is a weird analogy, but I want you to think about this. That's how you have to look at this. When you look at how many wins the guy is worth, I get the argument of, well, he was dealing with an injury if we're looking at a single season. But if I'm looking over the last 4 years, I can only find 1 year where it was like really, really good. And then there's the 2.5 one. I know if I go back a fifth year, he's in the 3-WAR range. But recently, this is a guy that can't even get to 1.5 wins above replacement. And that's not worth $20 million. You can find that in other places. Like, perfect example. Trent Grisham is a Major League Baseball outfielder that plays center field, is going to be a free agent, and is the same age as Luis Robert Jr. He doesn't have the same skills. He's not the incredible specimen of Luis Robert Jr.
He was a pretty highly touted prospect back a few years ago, but he's wearing the bust label up until this year.
That's what he was looking for. Okay. So perfect example for Trent Grisham. If you think that he's finally figured it out, and you think that this year's 3.5 WAR season is real, and he only hits 235, but he hits 34 home runs. If you think his 3.5 WAR season, where it's mostly his power and his defense that's giving him that, over 494 at-bats for the New York Yankees, his 3.5 WAR season is worth so much more. We're talking nearly $30 million a year if I go by that $8 million per win above replacement. But SpotTrack is saying that he's probably going to command about $12 million on the open market. So here's a guy who recently has shown that he's worth more in terms of being on the field. And I know there's a way you can shoot a hole in this. I know there's somebody right now that's looking up stats. They're going to put a comment in and be like, yeah, but this about Trent Grisham. What I'm trying to say is, if you find a player out there that you believe in that has shown you that in recent years, not 3 years ago, can be healthy, hit over 30 home runs, play a good center field, and he's going to come in at 12, and you're picking up the option of Luis Robert Jr., who's a lesser player over the last couple of years than that season that Trent Grisham just had, and he's coming in at 20. This is why you sit there and say, you got to find somewhere to move him. But every team in Major League Baseball who's not attached to him because he's not their original team is going to evaluate him against a guy like Grisham in the exact same way I just did it. And so it's going to be hard to find the trade partner, but you have the knowledge right now that you can go out. I mean, right now, according to SpotTrack, I can go out and I can spend less money for a guy that's worth more than double the wins above replacement.
Yeah, and Trent Grisham you're using him as an example. Okay, so before you get too many comments or people get lost in the weeds about Trent Grisham is better than Luis Robert Jr., he's not.
No, he's not.
And not even close. But if Trent Grisham in his age 28 season figured something out about how he needs to approach this game, okay, and maybe it is just him taking advantage of the short porch in Yankee Stadium. Maybe it is just, a completely different mindset for whatever it is. Trent Grisham as an example of a baseball player who could come in and produce as well as, if not better than what Luis Robert Jr. has been the past 2 years for less money, is a better move. You're right. Okay. If you're stacking up, we could keep Luis Robert Jr. or we could sign Trent Grisham for the same amount of money. There's no question you keep Luis Robert Jr. in that situation. So if the market is wonky this offseason, okay, where people are overpaying for free agents, and you look at the early going in free agency, if somebody gets way more money than they should, then it might change the judgment of what you do with a Luis Robert Jr. because Chris Getz might be looking at it going, yeah, but I can't overpay for this guy. Okay. I can't overpay for this guy when it's going to cost me just a little bit more to keep a guy that maybe can regain the form that he has and can play himself into something where, again, at the trade deadline, I can sit there and say, we're going to move him, and then nobody gives me what I want, so I don't move him, and then we lose him for nothing eventually anyway.
Well, here's the problem, though. You're overpaying Luis Robert Jr. right now.
Well, you are.
You're grossly overpaying. You're overpaying Luis Robert Jr. right now. Okay, you are. You're overpaying him. If you bring him back and you let him play for $20 million, you're overpaying him. And you're hoping, and this is something I always find to be so dangerous, you're hoping that he performs so well that you're able to move him at the deadline. Well, I don't want to think in that mentality because I expect you in 26 to want to contend, right? So if we're contending and we're actually a good team and he's playing well, you better hold on to him because he's worth that $20 million. See? Now you wouldn't move him. That's the weird paradox of it, right? If Luis Robert Jr. goes out and gives a 5-WAR season next year, like he gets back on his thing, right? And you get just natural progression from some of these rookies, you're going to be contending. You're going to be at the All-Star break as a team that may not be in first place in the Central, but you're going to be a team when you look at the wildcard standings is sitting there within 5 games of that last spot. I don't want him moving him then. Because I'm going to sit there and say, well, he's on his way for a 5-WAR season, and if a win above replacement is $8 million, he's outplaying his contract at this point, so I don't want to move him. And so that's the thing. Like right now, I think in the offseason, I think that they want to move him. But I think the problem is it's all going to be off of the free agent market. It's all going to be what did Trent Grisham get and guys like him. And then the problem is if that happens and you do move him, who's playing center field for you next year? Because by the time you turn around and you want to add a center fielder, you're not going to really have one. So now it's Brooks Baldwin, your starting center fielder.
And Brooks Baldwin is not good enough.
No, he's not good enough. Is he cheap? Yes. But is he good enough? No. And so that's the issue. I think that's one of the biggest questions that they have inside of the front office right now. We would have liked to have moved Luis Robert Jr. We missed an opportunity at one point. Then we knew we wanted to do it. We didn't get what we wanted. Now we've got to sign him to the $20 million, even though he's underperformed that contract and doesn't actually deserve it. We're hoping he gets better. If he gets better, though, we're probably not going to move him because we're hoping to be contending. Because you heard Josh Barfield when he talked to Scott Merkin, and we've talked to Merck about that on this show. They want to get better. This isn't about like just sitting around building and collecting prospects. They want to get better. They want to add some things. So if he's good, you're not moving him. So essentially what Luis Robert Jr. is, as we're talking this out, is you've decided we're signing Luis Robert Jr. for $20 million, even though he's probably only worth 12, on the hope that he becomes at least a $20 million player, because we don't really have any other option unless something presents itself to us. He's either going to underperform the contract and you spend bad money on him, or he's going to perform or overperform the contract and it's going to work out for you. But if things go the way you want it to go in 26, you're not really moving him at the trade deadline then because you're trying to win. So then in reality, maybe this is sign Luis Robert Jr., hope you do well. If you do well, that's great. You get to the next offseason and you see whether or not you want to improve your team, and now are you keeping him for the next option? It's such a weird thing because he is not playing up to his contract, but the way that free agency works, it's almost like you're forced to keep him. You're forced to pick up the option because there's no justification for getting rid of the option. Unless, of course, they have a conversation with Trent Grisham's agent or somebody like that, and they go, you know what, it's time for us to make a change. We're going to pay him $2 million to walk away. We'll put that egg on our face because we think long-term, the smarter thing is to go with this other 28-year-old who's worth more wins above replacement, who's figured it out, and we're tired of an injured center fielder. That would be the only argument. And then you just wouldn't pick up the option, Ed.
Yeah, the other thing is, this is, we're looking at Spot Track and what's available in center field, and it's got guys like Mike Yastrzemski, who's not been really a center fielder in his career.
No.
And then but the other options are Harrison Bader, if the Phillies decide they don't want to keep him around, who has had a lot of terrible seasons up until last year. He's kind of a Trent Grisham. You've got Cedric Mullins, who fell way off after his one All-Star season. You're
not getting Jarren Duran because he's got an $8 million option, and he was a 4.6 WAR. So the Boston Red Sox can't wait to pick up that option.
Yeah, and to the extent that the Boston Red Sox are thinking they've got a crowded outfield, and you'll hear buzz about that in the offseason, you're going to have to, they'll pick up Duran's option to trade him if they're going to move him in any way, shape, or form, but they're going to expect something good back for him, and it's not going to be trade Luis Robert Jr. And it's not going to be anything that the White Sox really care to want to offer back to them anyway. So, you're looking at guys that's like, okay, can a Lane Thomas play center field for us? But here's a guy that when you're looking at the WAR situation is not been good the past couple of years. He's been under a 1. You've already got that with Andrew Benintendi. So where Luis Robert Jr.'s option and keeping him or trading him comes into play, I think, is going to rely on, one, as we've talked about, what does the market have? Okay, what is it exactly that you're going to put in center field if you don't keep Luis Robert Jr. around? Can Mike Tauchman handle center field, for example? Okay. Or is there something coming back where there's a guy that you and I are not privy to, we're not talking about, we don't know the entirety of the minor leagues or anything like that? Is there somebody there that's waiting in the wings that you think can take his place that's not Brooks Baldwin? Okay. Is Caden Connor a good enough center fielder, a guy that's doing really well in the Arizona Fall League right now for you, and had a decent run at Birmingham this year, and a little bit of a taste of Charlotte too, I believe.
I never trust the Arizona Fall League, though.
I don't either.
I don't. I know we got some guys down there that are playing really well. Hagen Smith pitched really well recently. I can't trust it. I can't because Colson Montgomery looked really good in it, and then when he got back to AAA, he couldn't figure it out, and then they had to do like specialized training with him. I mean, there's always these guys that are really good in the Arizona Fall League, and then they get out of there. To me, the Arizona Fall League is just extra practice, but the stats mean nothing to me. They mean nothing.
No, they're really. You should be hitting in the Arizona Fall League. The only one that I'm excited about in the Arizona Fall League is Braden Montgomery, because he lost part of the end of his season to that broken foot.
Right.
And giving him the reps and having him come back and 5 walks over 2 games, 2 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts, but just a ringing double. His first hit at back was, I think, 112 miles an hour off the bat. So, something like that, you sit there and you go, good on Braden Montgomery for being there, getting some extra reps, get him ready for spring training, let him prove mentally that he is, not held back by a foot injury. And that's a good thing.
And he needs it. And the team needs it, because guess what?
Absolutely.
He's the
replacement for Luis Robert Jr.
Well, I think we've heard he'll probably end up more in right field, but production-wise, he is what you expected Luis Robert Jr. to be. And that's the guy that you're waiting for, and that's the guy that we've heard buzz on this show may show up in the second half of next year. So, and the only way that happens is if he performs well in the Arizona Fall League, avoids injury, you see growth and potential in spring training, and you get a great first half for him down in the minor leagues. I mean, you need all that to line up, so that's why the Arizona Fall League means something to him. But that's the thing. I mean, that's the outfielder we're waiting on. Otherwise, we're going out and we're signing free agents. We're shuffling things around. We're trying to move Andrew Benintendi's $15 million deal, like we were talking about that. And you're trying to figure out what to do with Luis Robert Jr. I mean, it's really easy to sit there and say, I don't want to spend $20 million on Luis Robert Jr. Here's the proof of that. Here's the fact that he didn't perform well enough this year to command $20 million. He didn't perform well enough over the last 2 years to command $20 million. But then there's another thing to sit there and say, am I willing to pay him $2 million to go away and roll the dice to find a guy in free agency at an equal or lesser monetary value who's going to give me a little bit more? Or am I just going to say, this is the guy I signed, I know what he is, and I really just want him to put it together right now, and we're going to have to roll with it? the Sox Nerd. Dave Marin's on the line with a tidbit, a trivia nugget possibly. He's always on the scoreboard at The Rate, and he appears on Sox in Basement each and every weekend. Brought to you by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience a downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore. Check out the Lamont Unlocked podcast where we went ghost hunting. And depending on if you believe in what you see and hear on the screen, we found a ghost. So it's something to check out. You can see it at lamontdowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Chris, let's talk about Brooks Baldwin, shall we? As a switch-hitting utility man, there are a lot of nugget and stats dreams for the old nerd. For example, Baldwin's 11 homers in 2025 are the most ever by a Sox player who appeared at 6 positions in a season. Baldwin played second, short, third, left, center, and right. Where did he hit best? His top slash line came in center, where he hit .313 with a .378 on-base percentage and a .493 slugging percentage in 23 games. For pure power, it was left field. He clubbed 6 homers in 33 games there. Baldwin's appearances were pretty balanced. He played 33 games in left, 23 in center, 20 in right, 12 at third, and 8 each at second and short. In 2025, Baldwin became the 15th Sox switch hitter to club at least 11 homers in a season. At age 24, BB became the second youngest switch hitter with at least 11 homers in a season. The youngest was 23-year-old Yoan Moncada, who hit 17 homers in 2018. Just call him Early Baldwin. Baldwin liked things early in 2025. Early in the game, early in the count, and early against the pitcher. Early in the game, that's the first 3 innings, Baldwin slashed .305, .360, and .524 in 2025. Early in the count, that's on the first pitch, 1-0 or 0-1, Baldwin slashed .393, .400, .528, and early against the starting pitcher, that's the first time around, those numbers read .325, .381, and .588. Baldwin was the first Sox player to homer in Sacramento and at Tampa's Steinbrenner Field. And on April 11th, Baldwin joined Reed Nichols as the only Sox to play second, center, and right in the same game. Nichols did it on May 22nd, 1986. 6 positions, some good splits, but the best thing I saw out of Brooks Baldwin this season was a home run he hit off Mason Miller in Sacramento on April 25th. Yes, and I was actually there. Baldwin pulled a 99-mile-an-hour heater and sent it out of the park at 104 miles an hour. On an unrelated note, Shohei Ohtani hit 3 homers while recording 10 strikeouts in 6 1/3 innings for the Dodgers in Game 4 of the NLCS against the Brewers. The only time the Sox had a performance that even approached what Ohtani did came in the second game of a doubleheader on June 16, 1957 at Comiskey Park. In that sweep-completing win, Sox reliever Dixie Howe hit home runs in back-to-back innings in igniting a 6-run comeback in which he would net the victory with 3 2/3 innings of scoreless work. Howell is the only pitcher in Sox history with a multi-homer game and one of just 4 relievers in MLB history to accomplish the feat. He was the last one to do it, by the way. Before I get to my zinger, let me remind you that there is no off-season for the nerd. I am posting 2025 player reviews, 2025 nuggets, birthday updates, a daily Sox list, and almanac items on Twitter and on my WordPress blog, which you can link to at soxinthebasement.com. In honor of the 20th anniversary of the World Champions, I'm going to zing frequently about that team, throwing out some gems you may not know about the 2005 Sox. Brooks Baldwin played 6 positions for the 2025 Sox. The player who appeared at the most spots for the 2005 World Champion Sox was Pablo Ozuna, who played 6 positions. Good old number 38 appeared at first, second, short, third, left, and right. That's it, fellas. Probably more than you wanted to know about splits, early Baldwin, slugging relievers, and multi-position players.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always on soxinthebasement.com.